Okay. So Jesus goes on in the Matthew passage. And this is really interesting because he starts using this phrase about moving mountains, and in the or in the Matthew passage, moving mountains, killing trees. In Mark, he only talks about moving the mountains. So I want to look at the Matthew passage. Let's take a look at the Matthew 21. Go to Matthew 21 and verse 18. We already read the Mark one together. In Matthew 21, Jesus, same story being told, cursing of the fig tree. And in verse 21 of Matthew 21, it says, So Jesus answered and said to them, Assuredly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you not only do what is done to the fig tree, but also if you say to this mountain, Be removed and be cast into the sea, it will be done. And whatever things you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive. So in both the Mark passage and the Matthew passage is this reference to, like, hey, these disciples are shocked that this tree has been withered like overnight, this miraculous thing. Matthew says it happened immediately. Mark says it like the next morning they saw it was withered from the roots, but regardless, it took less than 24 hours for this magnificent leafy tree to just be withered and gone and dead and rotten. So this miracle of this cursing that Jesus does has had its effect, and they're all amazed. This is not a natural phenomenon. They're all amazed it could happen so fast. And then Jesus says, I don't know why you're amazed at that, because you could do the same thing. You could move mountains, and you could do the same thing with a fig tree. And I look at this and I think, well, wait a minute. This moving mountains bit of business. It's like, what does he mean when he's saying this, right? The first time I know when Jesus talks about moving mountains actually is when he's coming down off the Mount of Transfiguration with three of his disciples. And the other disciples have been down the hill and they've been trying to deliver this boy who's demon possessed from the demons. And they're trying to pray these demons out of him, but they can't do it. And so Jesus comes along and then he tells them this kind only by prayer and fasting, but he doesn't pray and fast. Instead, he casts the demons out, boom, bam, boom. And then he turns and he says the same thing. Um, he says to them, because of the littleness of your faith, you couldn't do it. For truly I say to you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. That's Matthew 17:20. So the first time Jesus talks about moving mountains is in context of demonic deliverance. The first time I can think of anyway. And and you look at that and you think, did he mean literal geographical, geological, topographical mountains? Or is he using this, much like the fig tree, as symbolic language for something else? I mean, some people take it literally, like, no, I'm just praying that God would move mountains. It's like, honestly, right? I don't know. I mean, why would he give you that power? Like, because for every mountain you would like to move because it's in the way of your commute to work, somebody else likes hiking on that mountain and they want it put back. I mean, and Jesus didn't do that, and nobody else in history has done it. So probably Jesus is talking metaphorically here about mountains to be moved. He's meaning it symbolically of something. He's meaning power, something huge, some giant obstacle that is in your line of sight that never leaves, and you always have to go around it, you have to go over it, it dominates everything. Now, for some of you who live in flatlands, you're like, I just don't get the reference point very much. But those of us who live in mountain regions, yeah, we understand that. In Spokane, we have this mountain just out of town called Mount Spokane. Obviously, we're named after a tribe of Native Americans, and the mountain is, and as well as our city. And the mountain is, you can be downtown Spokane shopping and you can get in your car, and in less than an hour, you can be on the ski slopes of Mount Spokane skiing. It dominates everything. In the summer months when the winter snow is melted off, you can actually drive to the very, very top and you can look way off into Idaho. And some people think on a clear day, you can see almost all the way up into Canada. It's a beautiful view, staggeringly gorgeous. Um, and we have little sayings around here, kind of like, well, you don't plant your flowers until the snow melts off Mount Spokane. Something the locals know, right? Because we always like, April will be beautiful and warm and sunny. Like around the 1st of April, second week of April, you'll think, oh, this is great. And all the stores are producing all these flowers. Come buy flowers and plant them. And we all know if the snow isn't melted off Mount Spokane, there's going to be a killing frost that comes. So you're going to buy $400 worth of flowers, and a killing frost will come in a week and they'll all be dead, and you're going to have to buy them all again. So you don't plant your flowers until the snow melts off Mount Spokane. See, it's this reference point for doing life. And of course, when you drive around and you're seeing the mountain, everything is sort of in reference to that. North of the mountain, south of the mountain, around the mountain. The mountain is this dominant thing. And when you think of it like that, it's like, oh, that starts to take on a different meaning. I remember for a while I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, at a point in my life which feels like more than a lifetime ago. And when I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, I was working at a church there, and I lived in a little apartment, a divey little apartment studio, right off the nose of Camelback Mountain. And Camelback Mountain is named because it's supposed to look like a camel who's lying down with a big hump and its head is laying on the ground. So it's supposed to look like a camel lying down. And it's right in the heart of the Phoenix metropolis. And north of Camelback is Scottsdale. It's like the Beverly Hills of that area. It's the rich place where all the high-end shopping centers and multi-million dollar homes and stuff are. And around the base of Camelback are big resort hotels. And then you sort of spread out from Camelback, and the further south you go, the poorer the city gets. And yet you can see it from everywhere. From anywhere and around there, you can see it from the Phoenix metropolis, from Scottsdale. It's this reference point. You can, when I first moved there and you're driving around, it's like, well, I know where I live. I live right off the nose of Camelback. I'm in a little studio there, and where I could look up and I could see where the mountain was. I knew if I was north, south, east, or west of it, how to kind of get where I needed to go. And you always know that, well, Phoenix and Tempe is south and Scottsdale's north, and it becomes this reference point for all other geographical references around there. You kind of know where you are in relationship to the mountain, right? And I think when Jesus is talking about the mountain, he's talking about that, the obstacle, the biggest thing in your life, the thing that is the view that dominates, the thing by which you negotiate and by which you around and you refer to the rest of your life on the basis of its relationship to the mountain, right? And for a lot of us, we got mountains in our lives that are not good. We've got childhood incidents which become the mountain in our lives by which we measure and by which we equate, which we do relationships with other people because of that mountain that got dumped and plopped in our life as a kid. Might have been like when the parents got divorced. It might have been an incident that happened in your young adult life when, you moved and you didn't want to, and you had to go someplace new, and your folks moved you out of state and dropped you in a whole new school. It might be when you went through a divorce. It might be when something happened in your life and a business failed. It might be some catastrophic event that becomes the mountain in your life. It might be you lost your home in a fire. Our family experienced that when my grandparents many, many years ago. And everything in life became measured before and after the fire, before and after that event. What life could have been before it happened, what life became after it. And relationships that you have get formed out of how negative that mountain can be. And you can't go around it and you can't go under it. You really can't go over it, but it becomes the thing that dominates inside your soul and your spirit and your psyche. It becomes the thing that dominates how you do relationship. It dominates what you think of yourself. It dominates what you think of where life is going. It dominates your concept of God. The mountain becomes your reference point for all other things. And I think when Jesus is using this, he's saying, if you have faith, God can remove that mountain, and it no longer has that kind of power in your life. And it can be replaced with a different mountain, a mountain that is the mountain of God, right? A mountain that is the reference point of Jesus Christ himself, where all your choices and your relationships, what you think of yourself, what you think of other people, what you think about life and where you're going, is now done in reference, in a compass direction to the mountain that is Jesus Christ.